Well, hi, this is Dr. Tom Ulrich, and I like to talk about leadership and engineering. Hey, the topic today is millennials, young people. All right, so the thing to know is, let me just say right off the bat, there's a lot of crazy stuff written in the popular press, and the reality is there is a bit of research on this, and just a lot of the stuff in the press just ain't so. So let's kind of set the record. So by looking at the research, instead of just talking about just frustrations and emotions and whatnot, let's look at what we really know from a scientific perspective. So, all right, so let's jump in. So first of all, how do we identify generations? How do we come up with this thing of people from 1980 to 2000? And the popular perception is, well, it's just sort of arbitrary. And the reality is that's not quite so. So what people do is, the people who research this and kind of study it and that sort of thing, is they plot a graph of live births per 1,000 people against time. And what they see is it kind of goes up and down, and every time there's an inflection point. So it was going up for a while, and all of a sudden now it's going down. That's an inflection point. So all of the inflection points are where we talk about there being a new generation. And at first glance, well, what's that got to do with anything? And the bottom line is people's attitudes toward children change over time, and it turns out to be kind of a convenient way to say, hey, this group of people, is like this, and so on. And something to know too is the inflection points are not always really sharp. So you'd think you'd be able to say 1961, that's when boomers ended. It's somewhere between 60 and 64, for instance. And so approximately, but not strictly, it's about every 20 years. At any rate, in case you're wondering, well, what are the generations? Well, so we can start with, the GI generation was, I think Tom Brokaw called that the greatest generation, but basically the generation that the young men from that generation fought in World War II. That's the GI generation. The silent generation was the generation sort of between them and the boomers. Boomers were the generation that started as people returned from World War II. Gen X was after the boomers and millennials, and of course that ended about 2000, and we really haven't even named the new generation yet, but the people just entering college now. By the way, fun fact, there's never been a United States president from the silent generation, hence their silence. Reagan and Bush and people before them were all GI generation, and then older Bush was GI. Clinton, younger Bush, Obama, Trump, those guys are all boomers. At any rate, so why do we care? Why do we care? Why am I even bothering to talk about millennials? Well, here's the deal. Millennials are now the largest segment in the workforce in the United States. So if you're a manager, if you're a leader, and you can't lead millennials, you're done. Your effectiveness as a leader now depends on your ability to lead millennials. And you may not like that. Hey, guess what? The world has changed. That is the reality, that you can kind of give up or learn to lead millennials. All right. So I mentioned this a little bit in the opening, but let me be real clear. The popular press, by and large, has it wrong. It's very popular to bash on millennials. So what's the research say? Well, the research says that older generations have always disliked a younger generation. So if you're a boomer like me, think back to when we were in high school. The older people hated us. They were all bashing on the length of our hair, and so just so you know. If you're prone to bash on millennials, you might as well wear a sign that says, "Hey, I'm a cranky old guy." Now, if you've read or listened to the video on Theory, I call it Theory X and Theory Y, or Douglas McGregor called it Theory X and Theory Y, you'll get more on this concept. But the summary of that video and that research is, people do rise or fall to expectations. So there is this element of in a group, with leaders, there's a very much of a dynamic where if you're a leader and everybody in your department is a millennial and every one of them is lazy, you probably had a part in creating that. Just your expectations. One interesting thing is, I have a friend who just loves to bash on millennials for getting their, for participation trophies and all that. And that always is very weird when I hear him say that, because it wasn't like it was the kids who bought the trophies. We did that. By and large, it was younger boomers and older Gen X's were the ones that went and decided that the participation trophies were a good idea. And so it's sort of oddly detached. The fault for the participation trophy phenomena is with the boomers and the Gen X, not with the millennials. I mean, sure, they received them and that has shaped them, but before we all blame them, it's like, yeah, we did that. So anyway, and as leaders, we need to lead the way to resetting expectations and to sort of, say, well, it's a problem. Okay, well, we need to be part of the solution. All right, so let's talk about some of the data. So there's a lot of journal articles. There's also a great book that I really recommend you read. It's by Rayner and Rayner, and it's really great. It's a father-son team, and the dad, Tom, he's a respected PhD kind of in the behavioral sciences world. And at the time they did the research for this book, the son was working on a master's degree, and they did some pretty impressive research. They got surveys that were a mix of qualitative as well as quantitative. So there was some, how well you agree a little bit, not very much, and so on, where it's kind of numbers. But it's also just, open-ended questions. They got data from 1,200 millennials. So it's actually a massive research effort with a lot of data. And it's really fun the way they wrote the book, because what they did is they, the dad and son sort of trade off talking, and so you have the dad who's a boomer and the son who's a millennial writing this book. So it's really, if you're going to be leading millennials, it's worth getting. So one thing is, they had a number of conclusions, but the one thing that they really hammered on is it isn't like you can accurately say millennials are like this. Millennials are different. I mean, I remember one time when I was in high school, we didn't live too far from Pasadena, and we would go up and spend the camp like the night before the Rose Parade, and it was just kind of a fun thing we did, and a lot of people did it. And I remember one time there was these cranky old people that walked up to us, and they were all mad about us being on the sidewalk, and they were just, you young punks, you hippies, and they were just sort of lumping us. Here I was, I was valedictorian, a straight A student, hard worker. I was anything but a hippie, and it just was really irritating being told that I was a hippie and and all this sort of stuff. So millennials don't like it. I mean, I don't know that any group really likes it. So and by the way, if you're going to lead millennials effectively, like don't tell your people like you millennials are like you people are. I mean, just don't do that. Don't tell millennials what they're like. That is just going to irritate them. So that's actually the funny thing about the research from Rayner and Rayner is probably the one thing that really is consistent across all millennials is that they don't like being told what millennials are like. Another thing that was a theme, it wasn't 100%, but it was certainly a major theme, a consistent theme. Millennials they don't just want a paycheck, they want meaningful work. They want to do something that contributes, they want to leave the planet better than they found it, this sort of thing. Okay, that is way better than boomers. So maybe lighten up on the millennials and realize, whereas we were just wanting to make money and just wanting to get rich, these people want to do something positive. That's wonderful. Now, it isn't that millennials don't want money. They want money, but by and large their motivation is not to become filthy, stinking rich at the expense of others. It's they recognize that you need money to pursue your dreams and have this, this meaningful life takes money. So, anyway. But because millennials want meaning, old school management does not work. To do it because I told you to, okay, that just isn't going to work with millennials. You're going to have to, explain why, the bully, command and control does not work with millennials. Do you want to be able to effectively lead the millennial workforce? You're just going to have to let go of the do it because I said so. It doesn't work. Now, the great news is, all of the modern leadership paradigms rely on this idea that you want to motivate people internally. You want to help them do things because they want to as opposed to because they have to. Well, the great news is millennials come preloaded with that's kind of what you have to do. And well, why would you care? Well, what all the data shows is that when an employee is motivated internally, the better employee retention, better performance, all these things. It's better to have people motivated internally. Hey, by the way, on the topic of meaning, it's going to put out a kind of an unrelated tangent to millennials, but if you're ever wanting to look for research and stuff on the topic of creating meaning in the workplace, the research is under kind of an unusual name. The name of that body of research is organizational spirituality. When you read that, organizational spirituality, it sounds like you're talking about like what, bringing religion in the workplace. No, that's actually not what it is at all. It's just the research that looks at the issue of meaning in the workplace is called organizational spirituality. And you can kind of see how in some cases religion ties in, but a lot of the researchers go to a great length to sort of hold religion at arm's length. At any rate, another thing about millennials is very important to know. Millennials by and large want relationships with older people. Now, remember when we were young, the 60s and 70s, what was the mantra? The problem with the world is the over 30 generation, and kind of boomers hated old people, and that was really a problem for people wanting to lead boomers back in the day, because the leaders tended to be over 30 and all this mistrust, and so this is a gift. This is an absolute gift for you as a manager, is these millennials. If you're older, if you're and if you are a millennial listening to this, then I would say just hold your head high. Stop letting all the popular press get you down about this. Don't be ashamed of being a millennial. But if you're older than a millennial, this is a gift. These people want to be in a relationship, and what that does is that preloads them to what's the nature of mentoring? Relationship. What's the mentoring, the nature of leadership? Relationship. What do these people want? Relationship. This is a gift. Millennials are really easy to lead once you figure out. And I apologize for millennials. I just did all millennials are okay. But my experience, that's my favorite age group to work with, and I'll tell you a little more about the history of tandem. But it's wonderful. People, the younger people want relationship with old people like us. And I was just describing, kind of talking about some of this with my wife, and she was, what about this person? What about that person? And kind of all these counter examples that sort of proves, the popular press stuff. And all millennials are not the same, just as all boomers are not the same. And there were boomers who were hippies. There were boomers who were dopers. There were boomers that were just all these, but a lot of us weren't, and just as I was really annoyed at the roast parade when this old person is all, calling me a hippie and stuff, you're just not going to accomplish anything by trying to do that. And, bottom line is young people do tend to do stupid stuff. It's amazing any of us survived our 20s with all our stupid stuff we did. And so the issue is not so much that, the boomers, the issue is, well, yeah, they're kind of young, And, if you decide to focus on what's in the popular press and all the hating on millennials, you just retire now. You're not going to be able to lead the workforce effectively. And, if you really want to help these young people do something great, you're going to have to kind of lean into, really believe in them. At any rate, so that's enough on the research. I'm going to talk a second about practice. So, in my first 10 years at Tandem, I was the director and then senior director of software engineering. And if you know Tandem's pump, it's pretty darn good. And the thing you may not realize is of all of the original developers, so probably 8 or so, they're all millennials. In fact, I think if you look at the department now, there's 20 or so developers, and I think all but 2 are millennials. And it was really great. All these guys. My strategy has always been hire interns when they're a freshman or sophomore and kind of mold them into what you want. And these guys are all the leaders in Tandem now. And it was really funny. People would come in and tour. Early on they'd tour Tandem, and they'd see me sitting there with just completely surrounded by 20-year-olds. And a comment I heard from more than one person who would be, some sort of investor or senior executive or something is, they would say, well, where are all your middle-aged cranky software developers? And I would always say, well, I'm right here, but those guys are doing most of the work. And same thing with our testers. Sometimes I'll do a video on our very unique approach to software testers, and they're all millennials, or the original ones were. So the bottom line is, I would really encourage you to stop hating on the millennials and realize that they just give us a wonderful opportunity as leaders, or people who want to be in a relationship. And if you're not interested in that, then you just have to realize that you're done as a leader if you don't figure out how to lead millennials. At any rate, I'm Dr. Tom Ulrich. I like talking about leadership and engineering. And you can find more of my videos. You can go to tomulrichconsulting.com, and there's some pull downs there. You can get to my videos. You can also go to YouTube. You can search on Dr. Tom Ulrich. I think you can also search on Engineering Leadership Guy. And at any rate, I'm cranking these videos out one by one. And thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.